Look, we all know self-help is full of garbage advice. Follow your passion, just stay positive, visualize success. It all sounds nice, but it's mostly bullshit that keeps you stuck. Now, real growth, it comes from brutal, obscure truths that nobody's posting on Instagram with a nice sunset in the background. My name is Mark Manson. I am a 3 times #1 New York Times bestselling author, and I am sick of it. No more cliche quotes, no more bullshit sunsets, no more cheesy Instagram posts, because I have dug into the history books to find 15 quotes.
15!
Never mind, 14 quotes that you've never heard of. Diamonds in the rough that smash self-help cliches and actually move the needle. Stop wasting time on fake motivation, because here's the real wisdom that you've never heard before. Quote number 1. He who fears he shall suffer already suffers from what he fears. Michel de Montaigne. Montaigne invented the personal essay. He was also incredibly obsessed with his cat. But most importantly, he understood that suffering is driven more by expectation than reality. I love this quote because it's a blunt reminder that worrying about future pain is often just as miserable as actually experiencing it. As I like to say, the emotions you avoid will control you, the emotions you face will free you. Fun fact, one study by the University of Cincinnati found that 85% of what we worry about never actually happens. 85%! So next time your brain starts spinning terrifying scenarios, remember, you're already paying the price for something that won't come true. Stop worrying, start fucking living. Quote number 2, you'll worry less about what people think about you when you realize how seldom they do, from David Foster Wallace. I read Infinite Jest in 2010, and at the time, I suffered from a lot of social anxiety. When I read it, this line in the book hit me like a bucket of ice water in the face. For years, it became a mantra in every social situation I was ever in, and since, I've shared it as much as I possibly could.
What is your favorite quote?
You'll stop worrying so much what other people think of you when you realize how seldom they do.
The quote refers to a psychological phenomenon known as the spotlight effect, the natural human tendency to assume that everyone is paying far more attention to us than they actually are. Understanding this psychological tendency can liberate you from worrying so much about what other people think of you, because the fact is, they don't.
I don't think about you at all.
Quote number 3, life shrinks or expands in proportion to one's courage. Anais Nin. The most important moments in life are the most intimidating, and the most intimidating moments demand the most courage. Therefore, QED, your courage is proportional to the significance and impact it will have in your life. Now, some ancient Greeks went as far as arguing that courage must be the first virtue simply because it is required in order to accomplish all of the other virtues. The more courageous you are, the wider your horizons of possible actions you're capable of taking, the broader, more impactful your life becomes. Now, there's quite a logic to that. We will actually come back to this idea later. Quote number 4. Is this number 4? Quote number 4. One must choose in life between boredom and suffering. Madame de Staël. I don't know how to pronounce that. Madame de Staël did not fuck around. An 18th century French philosopher, she was an outspoken critic of the king, the Reign of Terror, and Napoleon, yet somehow managed to keep her head on her shoulders. Literally. I love this quote because it actually evokes a deep Buddhist principle without even knowing it. We escape boredom through stimulation and craving, yet all stimulation and craving requires a come down, an experience of lacking that stimulation or what you crave, which then causes suffering. So you can either select the roller coaster of worldly pleasures and pain, or you can withdraw and subject your mind to the sheer boredom of intense meditation and detachment from all worldly experience. The Buddha would encourage you to do the latter. Madame de Staël, to her credit, I suppose, would have chosen valiant suffering. But if pain's inevitable, it makes sense that we would try to avoid it, which brings us to this doozy. Number 5, all sins are attempts to fill voids. True virtue lies in the recognition and acceptance of one's own emptiness without desperately trying to fill it. Simone Weil. There's a desperate need within ourselves to feel like we're doing something, accomplishing something, gaining something. Without it, we feel completely empty. We can either fill this void with constructive moral pursuits or fill it with compulsive dysfunctional ones. You know, sex, drugs, playing League of Legends for 14 hours straight and still ending up in Bronze League, you fucking loser.
Wow! How, bro? How has he done that?
The first step to managing that internal emptiness is to simply accept that it's there, that it doesn't necessarily always have to be filled. You can just be, man. Just because you weren't productive doesn't make you less of a person. Just because you're not caught up on the latest trend or the show or the cool meme that all the cool kids are talking about, it doesn't make you less of a person. Just because you're a hard-stuck feed lord and none of your friends want to play with you anymore doesn't mean you're less of a person. Or does it? Fucking noob. Quote number 6. The curious paradox is that when I accept myself as I am, I can change. Carl Rogers, Big Daddy Carl. Carl Rogers was probably the most influential psychologist that you've never heard of. His big contribution to clinical psychology was that he argued that genuine growth starts with a non-judgmental look in the mirror. He championed unconditional positive regard, a fancy term for accepting ourselves and others without imposing a bunch of bullshit standards and conditions. We usually think we have to punish, shame, or guilt ourselves to spark any sort of improvement. But Rogers flips that on his head. The more we fight who we are, he said, the more stuck we end up becoming. So embrace your quirks, own your awkward dance moves, come to terms with your prodigious talent for procrastination. Ironically, that acceptance is actually what's going to set you free. Quote number 7, genius is nothing more or less than childhood recovered at will. From Charles Baudelaire. This quote made me stop in my tracks and think for a minute. First, I had to ask myself, what is genius? Like, really, what is genius? Like, there's a cliche that talent can hit the target everyone else is aiming at, but a genius hits the target no one else knows is there. So what does that have to do with childhood? Well, let's think about it. To see a target that no one else sees, you have to have a freedom and curiosity untainted by the outside world. Kids dream up things without worrying about the mortgage or tomorrow's deadlines. They play spontaneously without concern of whether they'll be judged or whether they are improving their credit score or not. It's this freedom from social pressure, this willingness to look where no one else is looking, to follow one's raw and untainted passion that allows the creative genius to flow. The takeaway? Tap back into that raw sense of wonder, even if it feels silly. Genius isn't always about big IQ numbers. Sometimes it's about giving yourself permission to take a shot at something no one else is looking at. Now, speaking of geniuses, quote number 8. I have forced myself to contradict myself in order to avoid conforming to myself. Marcel Duchamp. God, I fucking love this quote. This quote goes so hard. Marcel Duchamp was nothing if not contrarian. He once put a urinal in an art gallery and called it a fountain. A lot is said about the online echo chambers today, the tendency for us all to seek out information that confirms our prior beliefs. What gets talked about less, though, is what psychologists call confirmation bias. That is our tendency to be our own echo chambers. See, there's a natural human tendency to only seek out what is already pleasing and comfortable, what already aligns to your own beliefs and tastes. What Duchamp recognized in the context of art is that this is the death of creativity. That creativity requires you to be willing to step outside of your own comfort zone and allow yourself to be challenged. In many cases, challenged by yourself. And this is true across life. We must always be willing to contradict our own assumptions and preferences, at least to see if what we want is actually what we want. We must resist the trap of becoming our own cliche. The alternative is just self-imposed stagnation. By the way, a couple quick bonus quotes. I got one for you. You can't be a life-changing presence to some people's life without being a complete joke and embarrassment to some others. Or how about learning more is a smart person's favorite form of procrastination? You like those quotes? I got more where those came from. That's right, because I fucking said them. This video is sponsored by my own shit because I've got a membership community that is honestly changing hundreds of people's lives right now. I'm super excited about it. It's called Momentum, and the whole point of it is to get you off your ass, stop watching videos like this, twiddling your thumbs, staring at your navel, and actually doing something. Everything is set up and incentivized to help you take action, to help you take accountability for that action. And look, it's not like some massive world-changing action that's gonna just like alter the universe in 24 hours. No, it's actually a small, simple action every single day. And look, nobody's perfect. You might miss an action one day, but that's okay. You get back on the train, slowly you stack those small wins up. After enough time, boom, you're a completely different person. That's why it's called momentum. That's why this shit actually works. And that's why it's the greatest personal development community ever invented by mankind. We've got a couple thousand active members already. It's like barely 2 months old. We just did our first meetup in London. I'm super active in the community. I'm in there answering questions, talking to people, meeting members, and we've got some really incredible plans lined up over the next year. So if there's anything you sign up for, if there's any fucking sponsor you listen to in any video on this channel, let it be this one. Momentum community, go to findmomentum.com, tell Mark Manson that Mark Manson sent you, and tell Mark to have a nice day, because I want to have a nice day. Back to the video. Is this quote number 9? I don't even know. 8? Okay, 8. The highest reward, he doesn't know either. 9, it's 9, okay. The highest reward for a person's toil is not what they get for it, but what they become for it. John Ruskin. In an age where hustle culture glorifies a big paycheck or a promotion, Ruskin's words ring true. Because maybe the real perk of the grind isn't the shiny trophy, it's the friends we made along the way. No, I'm just kidding. It's actually the skill and character you develop along the way. Think about it. The big payoffs come and go. Money can be spent, plaques gather dust, but your skills, when you develop them, they are fucking yours forever. There's that old cliche that says, you are what you eat. Well, another way to think about it is what you do is what you become. If you put yourself under pressure and live a life full of challenges, you will grow into a person who handles pressure and overcomes challenges. Pretty plain and simple. Quote number 10. Break a vase and the love that reassembles the fragments is stronger than the love which took its symmetry for granted. Derek Walcott. In Japanese culture, there's a practice called kintsugi, where cracked pottery is mended with gold, making the piece more valuable than before. I love this concept as a beautiful metaphor for relationships, as the most important things in life tend to become more valuable the more they are damaged. A muscle grows stronger after stressing it. We become more resilient after handling adversity. Our relationships grow more intimate once we've been tested. And it's our heartache that, in retrospect, will one day strike us as the most meaningful. Because you really don't know what a relationship is made of until you've been through a shitstorm together. And you don't know what you're made of until you've dealt with pain and setbacks. You don't know how strong you can become until you've consistently tested your limits and made yourself feel weak. It's therefore our scars that make us strong and beautiful. Quote number 11. Excellence is not an aspiration. Excellence is the next 5 minutes. Tom Peters. Well, Tom Peters is clearly watching this video because the last 5 minutes of this video is gonna be fucking excellent. Right, Tom? Yeah. We often imagine excellence. That was so awkward. We often imagine excellence as some far-off result, something that we aspire to and work towards for years. I love this quote because it flips this expectation on its head. Sure, excellent results happen far off in the future, but excellence put into action happens each and every single moment, in everything we do. It's the email you send in the morning, the extra 5 minutes you spend fine-tuning a project, or the decision to actually talk to your coworker instead of ghosting them on Slack. Hell, it's the effort that I put into reading this script right now, which I'm clearly doing a great job of. All right, next quote. Hurry, scroll fast. Quote number 11 million. It's not the notes you play, it's the notes you don't play, from Miles Davis. Now, when I was in music school, I was absolutely obsessed with Miles Davis for a semester. I went through this whole phase. I listened to every single album he made. I read his autobiography. And aside from being perhaps the most influential musician of the 20th century, Miles Davis was a badass motherfucker. He took shit from nobody. In an era where jazz musicians were cramming as many notes into a song as they had the breath to play, Davis made his name by taking the opposite approach, by playing with the space between the notes. And it turns out that this is actually a useful metaphor for life. Who you are is arguably determined not by what you do, but what you choose not to do. Trying to do it all only muddies and complicates the song because the melody gets lost in the chaos. But stepping back and only doing what is truly important to you, only doing what truly expresses you, that gives all of your actions weight and significance and impact. So be conscious of what you do, but be even more conscious of what you do not do. Quote number 380 million. Freedom is not the absence of commitments, but the ability to choose and commit oneself to what is most deeply meaningful. True liberty exists not in escape, but in purposeful engagement. Nicholas Berdyaev. How do you pronounce that? Nicholas Berdyaev was a Russian philosopher who lived through the Russian Revolution, so he knew a thing or two about oppression and freedom. In Western culture, there's a mistaken view of freedom as having more optionality. Choosing from 18 different types of coffee creamers is seen as a form of freedom. Having 400 movies and TV shows is seen as the epitome of freedom. Sure, ditching responsibilities can feel like freedom for a hot minute, but real liberation happens when you decide what truly matters to you and go all in on it. Research actually shows that more optionality doesn't make us any happier. It actually cripples us with the anxiety that we're not making the best choice. Ultimately, a meaningful life requires constraints, and it's the ability to choose our own constraints that sets you free. Quote number last one. The most common way people give up their power is by thinking that they don't have any. From Alice Walker. Powerlessness is a mindset more than it is a fact, and modern psychology shows us that there is a certain amount of self-fulfilling prophecy to our beliefs about ourselves. If you're convinced that you're powerless, you'll stop trying before you even start. Whereas if you always assume you have some agency, then you will look for better choices and create better results. The truth is, you always have some form of power, no matter the context, no matter the situation. No matter how bad things get, you have the power to decide. How am I going to see this? How am I going to respond to this? How am I going to get better at League of Legends and get the fuck out of Bronze League? Put another way, you don't necessarily always have the power over the things that happen to you, but you always have the power of how you react to the things that happen to you. Or to put it more succinctly, here's a quote from Jean-Paul Sartre. She said, "Freedom is what you do with what is done to you." That's a bonus one for you kids. And this is where courage comes back into play, because I think we give away our personal power not because we don't have any, but simply because we lack the courage to exercise it. So there you have it, 14 and a half quotes that I love and you'll never see on a motivational poster in a break room, and for probably a good reason. But if you enjoyed this video, check out my other video where I share 40 pieces of advice that I would have given to my younger self. I'll see you over there.